Meeting to order. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. And we're going to go through the budgets. The Board of Selectmen, as we just saw, just voted on their budgets. I think everybody here, or almost everybody here,
was in the hall.
saw or heard most of the exchange, so I'm hoping that will aid us in going through these budgets. Now, in the interest of time, I wanted to talk about whether we wanted to set a cutoff time tonight, but before doing that, is there anyone who cannot attend next Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday?
Is that the original dates?
The same ones we discussed at the last meeting that I emailed out, because I didn't hear no's from anyone, except for Scott for tonight, but I just want to make sure those are still good dates.
Yeah, if it's the same, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. Well, then, we can plan on still meeting all of these nights, or we can try to go longer the next couple of nights to get through it. When does, we don't vote on the articles until May 3rd.
So if we're gonna kill a meeting, I'd like to meet Thursday night, so next Thursday night, and maybe not meet Tuesday night, because,
Well, we're meeting Monday and Tuesday
right,
next
so
week.
if we think we're gonna get through the Monday night, maybe we could not meet Tuesday and meet on
That's
Thursday.
the night I would prefer to cross off,
Yeah.
would be
Next
Tuesday as well.
Tuesday is out.
Well,
No, not
depending
yet.
Not
on,
necessarily. Let's see what we can get
Getting ahead of us
done.
there, Bo, yeah.
should we make a cutoff time for tonight, or should we try to get through all of these?
Well, let's go to at least 9 and see where we're at, yeah.
All right. Do you guys have a preference on starting with the latter half budgets, since we just heard about those? Or does it matter?
Why don't we just start at the top?
All right, let's
So
just,
I have one quick question. Your reduction, your recommended reduction is to balance the budget
Yes,
based on,
based on a 2% raise.
2%, not 2.5.
The other night at the selectmen's meeting, you said taxes were going up 2.5%.
So this is an operational budget, so my recommendations are based on a 2% raise, and then as a separate warrant article will be for a school resource officer. If that gets supported, then it would equate out to a full 2.5%. If it does not get supported, then it would just be the budget at 2%, but that is correct.
So a 0.5%, 75,000 is gonna be a 0.5% of the,
we know,
Wow.
does that also based on
a
expected
lot.
revenues from
Is
the
that
state?
possible?
And
budget is there.
you have a flavor for that already?
I do.
Okay.
What's
something-
half a
David,
percent
how
of
could
our
that be
tax
possible?
levy? That, I'm not sure that math.
0.5% of the tax levy would be $75,000 is gonna make the difference?
It's probably, yeah.
I mean, your tax levy's about 22 million. Just do 2.5% of that is around $450,000 or so, and just divide it up. I mean, it's not exact, but it's pretty close.
It is pretty close.
Wow. Just seems like a lot.
It does seem like a lot.
For one police officer.
It's not even a police, well, it is a police officer.
No,
It's a
that doesn't,
school-
no, it's the
School
0.5%.
resource.
The 75,000 being a 0.5% seems
Oh,
not
okay,
off, not quite there.
okay. Oh, it's at the school. All
All
right,
right.
sorry, okay.
Let's start with 1140, moderator. There's no recommended adjustment from what was presented. Let's see, it's a request of $588. Does anyone want to speak to this budget?
Well, yep, since they haven't done anything in dues and meetings for the past 2 years, I'm gonna do that thing.
I hope you're being facetious.
No, I'm not.
You're not doing that. We're not nitpicking $100 here, $100 there, are we?
I'm not.
Seems to work well.
Well, it goes back into the general fund if it's not spent, is that correct?
Yes, but the general fund, taxpayers have already paid it, it comes out of the general fund.
You're just looking to see how far you can push me before I yell at you. Would anyone else care to speak to this budget? Hearing nothing, would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we recommend line item 1140 for 588.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm against it, just so you know.
Officially?
Okay.
Okay.
Title?
And in case you guys didn't know, Jim Benson's wake is tomorrow night,
Right.
4 to 8,
right.
and then the memorial service is Wednesday
Where is
morning.
it?
The Lutheran church up the street.
Is that-
28. 28. Yes. Lutheran church in Boston. I'm sorry, I just, yeah,
Yeah,
I did look
no.
on Facebook and
Yeah,
look it up. See if it's,
couldn't go through his budget without saying something. All right, Board of
Gonna be the
Selectmen.
moderator.
Board of Selectmen, it is down $2,278 compared to last year. There's no recommended suggested cuts. The budget is $335,545. Does anyone wish to make any comments or make a motion? Is there a motion to approve $335,545?
It's down. It's a good thing, right?
That is a good thing. I know there's been a change in staffing, so that makes sense. Do you guys want to go through the changes? There seems to be a little bit of hesitation. Well, we can go over what the increases are and the decreases are from their request, if that would help. Because there was a lot of movement on this budget.
Right, no, I don't,
Tuition reimbursement is up. Vehicle repairs is up 2,000. That looks like it's a new line item. Consultant services is down.
oh, that's right. You're taking over a vehicle, right?
Yeah, we are. We don't currently have a vehicle for the town hall, so all inspectors use their personal car. So the thought process is to take the old building inspector's car and allow them to use it. Obviously, you have to put gas in it, and my guess is every once in a while, it's got to break.
Yep.
Well, you don't have a gasoline line, so.
No, so that's where I'll take it out of.
It looks like there's an increase on strategic planning expenditures of $2,000, but overall, the budget's down $2,278.
What's that strategic planning? Is that for your, is that for the intern?
The thought process, the thought process is that we were going to have a new select person, and they haven't always in the past gone to training, and we anticipated that there would probably be some training that person would want to do.
They pay for it on their own, it's oh, no, it's not tax deductible.
Not for
Nothing's tax
2018, not unless they're in
Nothing's tax
business of
deductible.
being a selectman.
Okay.
I mean, I recommend we go with what we have
Mhm.
here.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, we're moving on to our FinCom budget. We requested 3,100. There's been no changes. The Board of Selectmen recommended the 3,100. Does anyone have any suggestions, or would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve line item 1310.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, FinCom reserve is steady at 67,000 year over year. Same recommended amounts. Does anyone have any suggestions, comments, or want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve it in the amount of 67,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving to 1350 for the town accountant. And let's see. There's an increase of $3,772.
That's agreed upon increase, I guess.
Yes, it looks like that is mostly, is that all contractual? All right.
It's mine, what do you have for number?
It's not one
Sorry.
person, is it?
I have 105,447. Is that
I
right?
do too, but that must have been
Yeah.
before they put in for the contractual
Oh.
amount,
That's correct.
for the clerical salaries.
That is correct. Yeah, so I apologize, I should have explained that up
Okay.
front, is that when these were put together in January, the clerical contract had not been approved yet, so I had to make some modifications to it, so we're
Okay,
budgeted
yeah.
for it. So I put it under department request on this sheet, because obviously, the department head would request the appropriate amount.
Right, right,
So,
they had
I
it.
apologize for that,
Okay, so the difference between 105 and 106 is that contractual?
Contractual.
but clerical, yes,
Okay, so the real amount is the 106,478?
478.
yes.
Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as at 106,478.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? So moved. All right, moving on to the assessor's budget. The selectmen and the town administrator have recommended a cut of $1,000.
And where was that, equipment replacement?
Yeah, so they historically
Oops.
request 2,000. You'll see some years they spend it, some years they don't.
Yeah, now we're
Um,
up to 3.
They requested 3,000. They didn't actually state as to what they needed the extra 1,000 for. I mean, there wasn't a pigeonholed for something, so therefore, we thought appropriate to make the reduction.
What line is this, David?
It's
It
equipment.
is
5889.
5889.
Oh, there we go.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve line item 1410 for the stated amount.
234,560. Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, moving on to the treasurer collector, 1450. It looks like there's been a reduction of $18,088. And I don't remember what that was related to.
Nope, the $18,000 is what it is from previous years.
Right.
There was no reduction from the request.
Oh,
No
okay.
reduction from the,
Oh, you're right, I'm
from the Board
sorry.
of Selectmen.
And it's slightly different than our books because of the,
Again, the same, if you see slight differences, I apologize. If I had more time, I would have spelled it all out. I
No,
apologize.
So that's fine.
just clarifying. Is there a motion to approve the $314,297?
Can I just clarify one thing though, on the clerical, instead of going up 2.5%, they went up 3, is that?
No,
can you-
yep, it was a 2.5% increase.
Oh, 2.5.
However, anybody that had over 18 years got an extra 1%, so a couple of them will have that.
Interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the treasurer collector, line item 1450, be approved at 314,297.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, we're moving on to town council at 87,000. There were no recommended cuts. Would anyone like to speak to this budget or make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve line item 1510 for 87,000.
Is there a second?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, we're gonna move on to information systems, which is 1550. And there were no suggested or recommended cuts from the Board of Selectmen or Town Administrator. So the budget stands at 92,550. Is there a recommend? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve line item, recommend line item 1550 for 92,550.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, the next one is Cable TV Committee. They're looking for $1,100. There were no recommended cuts, and they did not have any increase over the prior year. Would anyone like to make a motion for the 1,100?
I'd like to make a motion that line item 1550 be recommended for $1,100.
And that's budget 1560.
Oh, sorry, I read the wrong one, sorry.
1560,
Need new glasses.
Cable TV Committee for 1,100. Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. All right, we're moving on to the town clerk's budget, 1610.
Where'd that cut come from, David, at 1450? I missed them. I think I walked in around that time.
Yep, on 1630.
That's on the next budget, not this one.
Skipping ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was on the
Sorry.
elections.
First, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So the
Reading the
budget,
line wrong.
the request was
Let's go down.
$123,269. These are the same that was approved by the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator. Does anyone want to make a motion?
So this is one where we had a promotion of the secretary, is that correct?
She
Yes.
moved up a step
Yes.
or something.
To head administrator or something?
That is
And-
correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the stuff,
Yes,
right?
because I
That is
have all the
correct.
notes written down.
She was voted to be reclassified,
She
that is
was
correct.
voted, okay.
Okay, motion to approve 1610 for 123,269.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Now moving on to elections and registration. This is the 1450 difference that was just discussed at the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
So, I'm looking for my notes, but I could go off the top of my head. There is a line request in there for election officials, I believe. I don't recall the account number. But it was 8450, I believe.
Right.
And so you will see that her highest year, which was an election year, she spent 6,000. That was prior,
Okay.
that was, however, prior to some of the early voting registration requirements now, so we'll have more expense. But I thought 2,500 was more than she, I was kind of trying to meet her halfway somewhere in between, make sure she had the flexibility, meet the new statutory requirements. So I recommended a reduction of 1,450,
So we're bringing that down to
7,000. That is correct.
She's probably worried that she's not gonna be able to staff it all, or that she'll be doing it herself the whole time.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve elections and registrations in the amount of 31,325.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, the next one is Conservation Commission.
I'll be abstaining.
Now,
Okay.
does Melissa have to abstain as well?
Why? You
Her
want that?
husband's on it.
Nope.
Yes.
There's no financial gain to
Exactly,
her.
there's no, it's not a paid position.
Okay.
But is there a financial gain to Mo? Well, he's on it. That's a little different.
He's on
It's
it.
more prudent to, yeah.
I mean, personally, I don't think he really has to abstain
Yeah.
because there is no personal financial gain or interest in it. However, since he's on one board, if he feels that way, that's fine. But I don't think
I agree.
removed by one would be an issue.
Quorum.
Yeah, we would need a quorum. So, looks like you're voting.
Oh, hey.
I vote, you vote.
Bullied into it.
Well, I don't mean to build, I'm not trying to bully. She'll stand up to me. She'll punch me in the nose as soon as look at me.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about,
We didn't have to change that.
That's correct, because she's not at 18 years,
You
that
know,
is correct.
so the travel line and the dues and meetings line could be reduced, but it's almost a waste of our time to talk about reducing one line by $200 and another
Right.
line by $300. In any event, in fact, I'm keeping track of all these.
no, I think as a board, we should decide if we're going to do those kind of cuts, we should probably do it to all the budgets in the beginning, maybe talk about
Right.
it as they're being presented. Maybe we should talk amongst ourselves, maybe not vote, but maybe keep notes for when we go through them like this. But at this point, I would feel awful going through
It's
nickel
late
and
in the
diming.
game, yeah.
So I think when we had that discussion of, all right, what are our goals this season? That might have been a good thing to discuss. So maybe we can plan to discuss it next year, if you guys are okay with it.
So far, I'm coming with $2,000. What are you talking about?
That's a waste of my time, sorry.
I'm being,
I know you are.
just keeping track.
I
Keeping
know.
track.
I know, keeping us honest.
So that would be to kind of challenge them on some of these items where they haven't really been spending money.
And if that's the way we're gonna go, maybe we should meet before the letter goes out to all the boards. I mean, that's more of a policy, not a policy, but maybe a strategy.
Right.
If that was
We're
a,
talking bottom line and not line items, so.
Yeah, we are
Right.
talking, right.
It does impact the bottom line, right?
But
So-
they're supposed to put, don't they have to put things in the line where it belongs? Like if
they're supposed to.
dues and meetings, you can't put property maintenance in a dues and meetings line. Is that how it's supposed to be?
Yeah, so if you were to spend money out of a property maintenance line and you were over that line, you're still compliant with your budget because you haven't spent your dues and meetings. So
Right.
they would take it out of that other line. My concern and my fear is this. I become very aggressive watching the budgets after about March because I want to make sure people are not spending just to spend.
Right.
And my point is that for $200, $300, $500 lines that sometimes they use, sometimes they don't use, if the message then comes, we're gonna start cutting it, they're just gonna spend it.
They're gonna spend it,
And so.
so they can keep
I
getting it.
don't, I mean, I don't wanna reward bad behavior, because that means that if they just spend it, we'll fund it. And the good stewards of our money, will lose it.
That's right.
So there's a balance there, but I just would ask you to keep that in mind as you think about that.
Yeah, there is a balance, yeah.
And I think it would have to be a strategy that we would discuss and either embrace or not embrace. So,
I
no
don't
to
see
your
any
200.
meaningful number at the bottom here, over,
Is there,
$5,000.
Right.
Is there a way to really know how much they give back every year per department?
Yep,
Is
so.
that worth looking at the beginning when we're going through these?
So what I always say, the easiest way to do is, and when you receive your finance committee books, and if you keep them year over year, you actually get to see what the request was and what was
Right,
approved.
the actual, right.
And then compare it to the actual.
Right.
So you can easily look at it and be able to do the analysis on any budget that you would like to see.
That's true.
You know, I tell people this all the time, we probably at the end of the year, probably save somewhere between $200,000 to $400,000. So immediately you would say, well, geez, why don't we just cut that out of the budget to lower the tax rate? Remember, we always have to cover snow and ice at the end. So we do a really good job here that we transfer money, so the departments can't spend it, but we transfer money from an existing budget and we cover that snow and ice deficit. A lot of other towns don't have that flexibility because they spend it.
Right.
So what you do is you actually raise taxes the following year in order to be able to pay for it.
Yeah.
And we haven't had to do that, at least the 5 years I've been here. So I would rather continue to cobble together these 300 and 500s, make sure that they're not negligently spending the money, cover our snow and ice deficit with it, and then be able to return the rest into free cash.
Yeah, I think when you look though and you see, it went from 71,000, now we're up to 100, it adds up over time.
Mm-hmm.
They
It
do
does.
add up. But it's good to think about, I guess. So,
So we're still talking about the
So you're saying-
Conservation Committee?
Right.
yeah.
1710, $98,309. Well, if anyone knows anyone on Concom, let them know.
No.
Come to a meeting.
Hold on. Here you go. Well, I'd like to make a recommendation that we, on line number 1710, that we approve or recommend the $98,309.
Good. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, Mo, you're back in.
I am.
Open Space Commission, they're looking for $950. There's been no suggested changes. Would anyone like to make a motion on that budget?
I'll make a motion, we approve 1715 for $950.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. And then the Agricultural Commission, $600, the same thing, no suggested cuts.
Yeah,
Would
that's
anyone-
one they really don't spend.
That's a waste of money
But
right there.
if they all of a
It
sudden,
goes back.
if something comes up and they need money, and one thing I wanted to mention at the selectmen's meeting, when they were talking about the finance committee reserve, if they budgeted for the money and they planned to actually, they knew ahead of time they were going to need this money for their department, that's not the purpose of the FinCom reserve. That's for unexpected,
We're the rainy
unforeseen.
day fund.
Right, well,
Well,
for the operating
Right,
budget,
yeah,
in a
right.
way, yes. But it didn't get to the point where it became an issue.
Yeah.
But thought it needed to be reminded in case anybody's watching.
No, that's a good point.
Sorry, no, we're going back. Did we vote on the $600? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend line item 1720 for $600.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, moving on to the planning board. This looks like it has a decrease of $1,520. That was approved by the Board of Selectmen.
And where were we taking that 1,000 from?
So at the meeting, it was proposed, the $1,520 was proposed by Selectman Reyes. She did not provide the detail at the meeting. In my discussions with her earlier, she was recommending the following: $500 from the engineering services line,
Oh, because they don't use it.
$300 from the advertising line, $400 from the postage line, and $320 from the office supplies line.
Well, why don't we just micromanage their budget?
I know, and not to mention, part of the issue too is that postage has gone up.
Right, because it's gone up
And-
on every other budget.
And obviously, when
We do that.
abutters have to be notified and, I mean, it's,
Get
but-
carrier pigeons, just send them an email.
Sorry,
So we have the option to not reduce it.
I'm so,
That's right, we
300,
have the option to recommend. what they
$320 from the
originally
office
Yeah.
supplies line. You know, and again, it's a planning board. There is no doubt that they have not spent the money from the engineering line. And I think that the chairman made that clear, that 2 members are engineers and have probably provided some free service to the town. And rather than cut a budget, you know, and then they say, well, fine, then why offer the free service?
Right, right.
Look, I don't know, I've not spoken to them about it, but
really
obviously
wouldn't
you
wanna
saw the
rock
discussion.
boat.
I think that was the spirit of what was discussed.
Turn bad.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
want
make
to
a
rock
motion.
that boat, yeah.
Okay, so I'm,
So that's
So-
1520? I have, for some reason, that she only cut it 1,000.
Yeah, I did.
Only because the discussion centered around the fact that the engineering line is budgeted at 1,000,
Oh,
but she had proposed 1520, and like I said, you know, there was no itemization of where it was. I'm just going from her notes that she supplied to me earlier in the day. So I am presuming that what her notes are, because the numbers add up, is what it was that she would be recommending.
Would anyone like to make a motion to go back to what their originally requested budget
I'd like to
was?
make a motion, we approve line item 1750 for,
well, we don't have to, we can just make a bottom line recommendation on the budget.
Yeah.
Oh, do we have to add it back in per line, David? or do we
Well,
oh, yeah,
I guess what I would say is this, is
so
that,
people will,
Mo, were you, if you don't mind me saying, were you about to make a motion to put it back at the 25,565?
I had 370.
Back at 25,
Well,
378.
Well, the new
Yeah.
revised with the
Because that one there,
clerical change, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
right, sorry.
Instead
So,
but yes, it was.
right,
Right.
and you'll see that it's on here.
25,565.
Right there, 25,565. So if you were going to make a motion back to that, and the spirit of it is to just fund it at the request, and just inform me of that, and I'll make sure that I put the lines right. If the spirit is to approve that number, recommend that number, but you prefer the numbers moved, then just inform me, and I'll move those numbers.
I like the idea of it going back to where it was. I mean, we're purposely trying not to micromanage these departments and cut out small dollars.
Well, I feel
And I
like
think
if we
that-
didn't on the
We can do
previous
that.
one,
Right, then we
then-
shouldn't
We should be
here.
consistent.
Right, that's
I mean,
where I'm
unless
going. We
there's a
should be,
reason to do it differently, and I'm not really hearing a reason to
yeah,
do that,
right.
but
So the recommendation is for recommending line item 1750 for 25,565.
All right, is there a second
I'll
at the
second
original
it.
request amount? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes
That
unanimously.
read out at the town meeting.
It'll just be different line, there's Board of Selectmen recommend, FinCom recommend.
At this
No,
point, we don't
it's-
have a Board of Selectmen recommendation.
Yeah.
Meredith and I have discussed this, and it's something we can discuss at the end. But right now, what you have is you have department request, and then you just have FinCom recommendation. So,
It's our book.
so what you're really gonna see is, you don't,
Oh, you don't see Board of Selectmen recommendation?
Right,
Okay,
it's our book.
okay.
right,
You don't? Oh, we never did.
Oh,
This-
I
I mean,
forgot to bring
again-
the picture for the cover of the book.
yeah. Well, that's okay, we didn't have it on the
We're
agenda,
not
so we
putting
should
your
do it
kids
for.
on the cover of the book,
Oh,
Meredith.
God, no, who would want that? Then we'd have to print it in color to see their red hair. We're not spending that kind of money. Ask David, I already emailed him about that.
Didn't we do the cover in color?
Yes, and we spent it, but I don't want to. All right, I'm sorry.
Board of Appeals?
We're on Board of
Yeah,
Appeals,
1760.
and it's up $115 year over year.
Right, and again, that'll be a little bit different than your original budget, because the 2.5% for the clerical.
All right, but there were no recommended or suggested cuts. Department request is the same year over year. Does anyone want to make a motion?
So the Board of Appeals recommend 5686?
86. Mm-hmm.
The Board of Appeals.
A second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Did you vote?
I made the motion.
But you didn't say okay to it.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Thank you. I listened for everybody's ayes.
Just making the motion is
The same as saying aye?
a yes, or whatever the number is, yeah.
Oh, just say aye.
Just say aye, it'll be easier for all of us. All right, moving on to Rent Control Board. They requested $3,735. That is
And again,
consistent.
the 2.5% increase is in it.
And yep, it's consistent with the prior year request. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve line item, recommend approval of 1850 for 3735.
All right, is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, now we're moving on to $500 to the ADA Commission. No changes, the same as in prior years. They don't usually spend it, but if we're going to make policy decisions in other years or strategy decisions, we can talk about it then. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion on line item 1920 that we recommend the $500.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Now we're moving on to insurances. That is 1930. There were no changes recommended or approved by the Board of Selectmen.
So, do I remember we talked about this and you had some bids out or something? This
Yeah.
is kind of where we're at, or?
Yeah, so I haven't received any new numbers back yet.
Okay.
I also don't have anyone like clamoring. Look, municipalities for the most part don't have the same pool of available insurance companies because we're high risk. And so the pool is already smaller and we have had some claims. So
Yeah.
at this point, I'm budgeting what I've been presented. And if we can get bids in and it's cheaper, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. So I recommend we approve what's been requested here.
Joyce.
262,977.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, we're moving on to Town Hall, Budget 1940. They have requested 58,000, and it's mostly consistent with the prior year, with the exception of an increase in the elevator maintenance and the sprinkler maintenance.
Which I think we're stuck with, right?
Now, would anyone like to make a motion
I'll make a motion, we recommend approval of 1940
for
for
58,000?
58,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Municipal Building Needs Committee is looking for $1,486. Consistent with prior years.
So this one, clerical salaries, was $475.14, and then it jumped to $12.74. Was there a reason for that?
Say it again?
Nope, that's what was approved.
Yeah, I know.
No, that's the same amount that gets approved every year, depending on how often
That's how much we
they.
spent.
Correct, depending
have
on.
we
Do they
spent
meet
anything?
regularly, or?
They don't meet regularly.
Oh, yeah.
They schedule once a month, but if nothing comes before them, and then other times they'll get really busy. So that's pretty variable.
Oh, I see.
Another $500 to me. And I'm putting down on my little spreadsheet.
What was that?
Can we kick you off before next year? Do we get to
I want to
vote?
see what my total is at the end of the night.
good, I mean, it's
Okay.
a good idea. I don't think it's gonna add up to much, but.
But sure, go right ahead. Have a ball.
But I'll make a motion.
For $1,486.
Yep, line item 1945.
All right, is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. The next one is the wastewater treatment facilities. They're looking for $3,000 more than last year. They're looking for $6,600.
Yeah,
It's
because
mostly chemicals with it.
well, they're taking over the school's pumping oversight is what
This
I
was,
wrote
yeah, the
down.
equipment
Pumping
repairs.
annually.
Right, so the Board of Health always does the work. So through this budget of wastewater treatment facilities, they always handle it, manage it, and contract it out. But the school department historically always paid it. And this is not just for the schools, it's also the Public Safety Council on Aging and the library. And so apparently a conversation was had between the Board of Health and the school superintendent that it was more appropriate because they manage it to spend it out of their budget. So they just did a transfer. So I presume that the budget in the school department was lowered by $3,000 in that appropriate line, and then the $3,000 was increased over here. That's what, if you recall, that's what the Board of Health Chairman John Cruz had said
Yeah.
when he came before us, and before the selectmen.
I have to go look at the school and see if that happened, but I can assume so, right?
You looking through the, no.
Would anyone like to make a motion? What are you looking at me for?
Sure, I'll make a motion for
So-
line item
The
1950.
part that the school's no longer paying for, are they paying for the town or are they just paying for the school?
No, it apparently costs about $3,000 a year to do all of it.
All of it meaning
Responsible for the maintenance of the sewer system, or septic system, I'm sorry.
for the town?
Yep.
And the school was paying for it?
Yep.
Okay, that's not right.
So,
Yeah, so it makes sense to move it into the
Mhm.
appropriate budget.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry, you made a motion. Is there a second?
Approve it for $6,600.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Now we're moving on to the Economic Development Commission for $3,700. You can make your little notes.
Yep, I would say there's about $3,000 in that one because they haven't done a thing.
Yeah, but it's an important,
We need someone to take charge of it.
Planning on resurrecting some of that if we can.
It is, but there's never been,
I'd hate to cut it off and then finally have someone who would,
no, they
who
can
would do
we'll have
it.
to wait a year.
Kind of have said
It's
that
really
though for 3
important.
years.
Yeah, I think we ought to wait it. I mean, if somebody surfaces, they can wait a year.
someone surfaces.
You know how much in taxes
But if
that
someone
is?
surfaces, I hate to tell them to wait. If someone surfaces, throw money at them. Let them do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Important to the
It-
town. I don't
We really
understand
do.
that.
Taxes.
I mean, the Economic Development Committee is a committee that is focused on bringing businesses into the town. And we have a committee right now, but they're not doing anything.
They're not meeting, or they're meeting and
They are
nothing's
not meeting.
happening?
They're not
No,
even
They're not
Just
meeting.
can't seem
They,
to,
they,
Okay.
they have not been active.
yeah.
That's a waste.
Ah,
And so we really want them to because it's good for the town. It'll bring in more revenue. So I hate spending money. You guys all know that. I want to cut everything to a point.
I think if we really got that rolling, that number would be a lot higher
higher,
than that.
yeah.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot
It
higher.
would be, yeah.
But I think the return would be there.
Yeah, sure would
In any
be.
event, yeah, I'm up to 8,500.
You're
I'll make
trying
a
to cut this
motion,
whole
uh,
thing.
Attract people to.
So, 30,000.
That's another
3,000,
conversation, I
yeah.
guess.
So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this budget for $700.
For how much?
700. Hasn't been active in 3 years.
But it
Is
goes
there a
back to
second?
the general fund.
But Denise was right. General fund is, I mean, yes, it does fund the snow and ice. Yes, I think the town is better off paying cash than pulling bonds because then our rating goes down and we pay more to borrow. So we have to keep that all in mind. But, so it's a double-edged sword. But for $3,000 to fund a committee that never meets, that's just a no-brainer to me. I mean,
Is it fair to take it away if someone comes forward next week and says,
what are the chances of somebody actually coming forward next week? Probably slim to none.
Starting to-
I know,
You initiate people to come forward to, I'm just,
So that's the only reason why I feel that way. I've gone along with everything else. I do have feelings about the
Should
fire
we-
department, but
should we be applauding the fact that you've gone along with everything else?
oh, really, I don't really care. Barry. It's very good, but I just, this it's kind of ridiculous to fund something that hasn't met. And
Yeah, I don't want,
good point.
I don't want to defund it.
oh,
No,
What if we cut it in half?
Would that be doing the same thing?
Well, if I may,
Mhm.
you do have a motion. And so somebody has to second it, and then you have to take a vote on it. If there's no second, the motion dies, and then you would make another motion at a different number.
Okay, well, I've made a motion to approve the budget for $700 because, in all fairness, this committee has not been active in several years, and it's 3 years, probably more than that. And it's kind of ridiculous.
Then shouldn't we be doing that to every budget? Doesn't that fall under the same idea of being consistent? We did it with our budget.
Well, we're
We
not
didn't cut them up.
we agreed that we wouldn't micromanage. These people just are not meeting. There's nothing to micromanage, nothing.
They might be looking for volunteers.
Nothing's time nothing is nothing. So I don't feel there's anything to micromanage. So I've made a motion, and I've explained why.
Is there a second? Hearing
Alrighty
none, the
then.
motion dies. Would anyone else like to make a motion before Jerry
Make a
says
motion
something?
that We split it in half.
Okay.
Now, David, what would that do to the commission if it was only half funded?
Not much.
I mean,
They-
at this point, that obviously they're not spending any money because they're
Yeah.
not actively meeting. So I would say that there would be no hardship at this point. Obviously, the hardship, and I guess all I would say is, I hope all of you are on this board for many years to come, because sooner or later, when we do have somebody that is active and wants to do something, and they come before us and they say, well, I want 3,700, and if you're not here, that new board is gonna jump out of this room and say, that's a 100% increase, how dare you?
About 37,000.
And I'm speaking from personal experience, so,
Well,
so,
this commission was active when I started
it
the
was,
finance committee.
yeah. And that's all I'm saying, is that, I mean, I fully understand why you would want to reduce it based on current trends and past trends. All I'm saying is that hopefully it does become more active, because it could be and should be an asset to the town if handled correctly. And when it does, they're gonna need money, and then I'm just hoping that we'll support the request to fund them at that point.
I think we would. Only because of the potential revenue. I mean, it's huge.
I think
so-
it probably depends on when it's presented, what the other climate in
Exactly.
the town is.
Yeah.
Well, that's
You know,
just it.
That's the problem. So-
And I mean, Meredith, you've been on this board when the climate was to never give $1 regardless of how good the presentation was.
Right.
And that's only because we weren't gonna do increases. So, again, but I can't foretell the future. I mean, I don't know what will happen, but that has happened in the past.
My reason for not voting for it, I just lost my train of thought. I forget what I was going to say.
Not voting for the,
Or to
Mo's note,
yeah,
Mo's
to
motion?
cut it in half. I
Well, we can vote, and if not, it'll die again.
forgot what I was going to say. I can't believe it. Like, shoo, right out the window. Well, there's a motion. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion dies.
Okay, I'll make a
Oh, wait a minute, I'm
motion.
sorry, can you make it again?
Huh?
Cut it in half?
Yes.
Cut it in half, yes.
I
I was looking for something, Want to make that motion again, cut it in half?
Made a motion that we approve 1965.
Do you want to make this motion? Don't let her bully you
37
into it. You don't have to make this
I
motion.
will second that motion.
No, I'm sorry, how much did you say?
half the 30 cents.
Oh, half to 30, okay,
Oh, I
sorry.
thought you
So
said 30.
I did too, that's why I was looking. So the motion
Should be,
is
1850,
1850.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
See, my reason for no, oh, do I have to take a vote first before I can talk to it?
No, go ahead. I mean, it's open for debate.
We didn't do this on the other budgets, so that would be my reason. I'm not saying I disagree with any of this. I do agree. I do think they're not doing anything, so why give them the money? But on the other hand, we haven't done this to any of the other budgets. And I personally believe in fairness, consistency.
Are there any other inactive?
Yeah, I mean,
Committees?
I think that would be the
The-
difference, right? The
Well,
other
Agricultural
committees
Commission, is that active? That's still active,
They're
sort of.
actually active. They've just done, quite frankly, they've done some good work without spending money.
Oh, okay. Are there other committees that are inactive?
ADA?
No, ADA is very active. They're very good.
So this is the only
I would-
active,
I would say this is the
Rent
only
control?
rent control.
meets all the time.
Rent control meets. I would say this is probably the only real inactive committee.
It's not a lot of money, people.
I know, we're spending a lot of time on not a lot of money.
yeah.
I know.
Well,
So
The
it's
cutting in
been-
half idea sounds.
Oh,
reasonable.
it's been seconded.
Right, so I
Right.
think we have to vote, right?
Oh.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. I'm opposed.
so was that 4-2 or 5-1? Cheryl, how did you vote?
I said yay.
You said yay, so it's 5-1. And 1850, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Police department. That's a big one. So this line, David, you had said $10,000 reduction, and that was where again? The dispatchers?
Yeah, I think
Which
it's,
line is that?
I think it's other salaries, but it's the one that the request was up for 110,000.
So you're not funding the dispatch?
Oh, I had notes of the crossing guard,
Oh, crossing
dispatch
agents,
matron.
yeah, dispatch.
I'm sorry, Jerry, what's the
You're
question?
not funding a dispatcher?
No, we are. It was just that out of that $40,000 increase, you recall he had said that $3,250 was to reimburse people, I'm sorry, $7,500 was to reimburse people who went through the academy.
Yeah.
So the difference of $32,500 was to increase from 6 shifts to hopefully 12 shifts for dispatch. And I'm a big believer in it.
Right.
I want to get there.
Right.
But I couldn't balance. And I had to find areas, and I said, okay, if we don't give them 12 shifts, we give them 10 and a half shifts,
Yeah.
we're better than where we were.
Right.
Right.
And so that was my methodology.
Right.
Extremely scientific.
That makes
What did the police
Mm-hmm.
chief say to it?
He's been informed. Yeah, I mean, the chief knows that we're doing the best we can. Everybody knows that when you put budget requests in, is that we have to balance. They're always going to be more than we can afford.
Right.
And I think that we're still giving him the ultimate opportunity that he's looking for, which is to increase over time to be able to fully fund a dispatch.
He
I mean-
said he's working on a grant too.
He is, so that has already been applied for,
Yeah.
and so we're gonna go down it. The reality is that the state of Massachusetts is frowning on one-people dispatch centers, which is basically what we are. And the reason being is that because when you make a 911 call, is that they want you to stay on that call until somebody shows up. So if you call and you're dispatching to me, then I'm gonna stay with you until they get there. But if
And if
that's
somebody
4
else
minutes
calls, yeah.
and you call, I
else
can't
comes
answer the
in.
call.
Right.
So that's why we're saying, okay, here's our options. We hire a bunch more people, we know what's gonna happen there, it's gonna blow out the budget. Or we regionalize, and we hope that by having the same number of people or similar number of people, that we can pick up the same calls at the same time. And it's gonna cost us something. So if we fund nothing now, and we come in here a couple of years down the road and say we need $400,000, it's not gonna be affordable, and everybody's gonna be irritated.
Right.
So if over time, we can just incrementally get there, and one, that's good, and two, on average, we're spending $85,000 to $90,000 for a police officer. We're paying that person to sit there and answer a phone.
Yeah.
Under this, we're paying somebody $16 an hour
Right.
with the appropriate training that eventually will become a police officer. So I think that the chief has a really good program here. I want to be able to fund it. I just couldn't fund the whole amount. That's why I made the recommendation.
So you're providing the service at an affordable price, plus you're creating a path to future policing, right?
Yes.
goal?
In addition, the police officer that was answering the phone can now be on the street.
On the street, so, yeah, that's a
So we
win-win.
asked for 30.
Don't other cities do that?
Right. Although I think that full line is 110, so it would be
Right, right,
100, but yes.
But your, the $7,500 fee for the academy, I forgot if that was contractual or just something we do.
Yeah, so it's,
Reimbursed.
I don't recall whether it's contractual or not. I do know that at least the policy has been that when somebody joins our staff, they're required to pay the $2,500 up front. If they stay for 5 years, we then reimburse them. At one time, we used to pay it up front. And then what would happen was
And they
people,
leave.
they leave.
Oh, right.
Leave.
So this is probably what he thinks he needs to reimburse people?
The $7,500 is what he definitely knows. That's a fixed cost. He knows that.
Oh, he knows that.
The
Okay.
difference is what he was funding towards dispatch.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, I think that makes sense, what you said. It gives them something, but it saves us something too.
Right.
All right, does anyone have any other discussion on this budget? Or would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend, now what's their figure? $2,713,114 for line item 2100, the police department.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, that carries. Now we're on to the fire department, 2,200.
So you were saying
Right, so the Board of
secretary,
Selectmen.
right?
Yep, so in clerical salaries, there was a reduction of 3437, and that is because he was requesting to reclassify the secretary, and the Board of Selectmen did not approve that.
Where's this?
Sorry, in the
Fire.
fire
Okay.
department. And it's clerical salaries, I think it's 5111, is that the line?
5112.
5112, okay, I'm sorry. That request included a reclassification which was not approved. So that line will be reduced by 3437. And then the next line down, permanent salaries, we're reducing $5,000 only because there are a couple of firefighters that one is left, one is in the process of leaving. They will be backfilled, if you will, by two new hires that will come in at a lower rate. So we should save somewhere around $5,000. One has only been here for a year, so it's not a huge savings. So,
You know, I have to honestly say that I don't think that the clerical person should jump 2 steps, but I think that she should jump 1 step, personally. I think that if she's been doing the work for all the years, that she deserves a pay. And if the town clerk gets to jump her person, then I don't understand why the fire department person,
Well, I think-
person who's doing the work, I don't understand why she doesn't get the same benefit. And I think it's unfair to her.
So that's already voted, though we don't have any say
Yep,
in that, right?
yeah, I mean, you can fund that line at $1 million until the selectmen vote to reclassify her. It can't be spent.
That's,
Okay.
I mean, they're in charge of the collective, they're in charge of the collective bargaining agreement, so.
So one was approved and this
when
one
was,
was.
when was that vote taken?
When the fire chief came in, so I was gonna say in February or March.
Okay, so that was 3 men. Just saying.
Oh,
Ouch.
There's a woman on there now.
Now there is.
Is there a
Good point,
motion?
though.
Yes, but that's the same group that voted to approve the town clerk's person.
Yeah, and I don't understand why.
So,
I just don't understand why she didn't get the same consideration. It just seems rather unfair, but moving on.
I'm afraid that's not an issue for us.
Right.
Does anyone have any other discussion on this budget?
So was he adding a guy? I don't know, I had a note here that said 75,000 per guy. Oh, he'd like one more, but he didn't add one more.
he did not.
Okay. All right.
I think that was his 3-year plan,
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
Right.
it? All right, so would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make them, okay, go ahead,
ahead.
Paul.
Anyone? Anyone?
Okay, I would like to make a motion on the fire department line 2200, to recommend $2,238,055.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're moving on to the building inspector, 2410.
Oh, boy.
Now, it looks like there have been some cuts by the Board of Selectmen, and I know there were a lot of items in this budget where
Oh, yeah.
he was looking to increase clerical salaries on this
Adding
one.
16 hours, I've got.
Right, so that was the only line that was reduced,
Right.
and it was a 16-hour part-time person. I believe that you heard that discussion with the board.
Mm-hmm.
They
And
didn't,
that was the $19,000?
yeah, 19th, yep, correct. Again, truthfully, what I did, just so you know, is that I added the 2.5% to the current person, and then minus his rate, so it comes out to a net difference of 19,330.
Yeah, I mean, everything that he presented, really didn't support his case to add
Right.
a part-time person.
Yeah, his numbers didn't, he was saying there was increased work, but when you actually looked at the numbers, It didn't tell the same story.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you this, the secretary that's in there really does a good job. She will be retiring the next couple of years, and it's an extremely complex job.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, somebody coming in, they're asking zoning. I mean, I bet you 50% of the employees in this town that have been here for 20 years, if you went to them and said, define what an accessory building is, they wouldn't know how to do that. So it's an extremely complex job. So my hope is, and I've put this request in, is that when she does decide to retire, I don't know if it'll be in 1 year or in 4 years, is that we probably fund an overlap of around 6 months. Because I think that as residents, you're really going to pay for it if that person leaves who has 25 years of experience and somebody walks in the door and doesn't know anything.
You lose all that tacit knowledge.
You really do.
Right,
You
unless
really
you get
do.
somebody who's coming from somewhere else where they do have some experience, but you'll pay for that.
Yeah,
So
because
either way.
right, because they'll know the definition of an accessory building, but they won't know our setback requirements, for example, and every town is different.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, would anyone like to make a motion?
So I'll make a motion that we fund it at the 150, 157.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, we're moving on to the gas and plumbing inspector. There were no recommended changes to this, right?
Nope, it was reduced by
Oh,
6166.
And what's that related to?
So there was 3 lines that he was looking for. One was is that he was looking to increase the
Right.
part-time person from a little over 12,000
Right.
to I think 20,800.
Yes.
And so we basically met him in the middle. We took a look at a survey. We understood that, $12,000 is not a lot of money for a skilled person that is a master tradesman. So we thought that it made sense. And quite frankly, we have a very good electrical inspector. And what I'm saying is going to be true for the gas and plumbing gentleman as well. It's not easy to replace people at $12,000 a year that are 25, 30 years in the trade and have the experience and the degrees, certifications. However, there was 2 other lines that he was looking for as well. One, he was looking to increase the travel stipend from $1,500 to I think $2,562. That was denied. And the other one was in intermittent calls on the electrical side. There was always budgeted at $200. He was looking to bring it to $1,800. We brought it back down to $200. And just so you're aware, the reason that shows up at $200 in the electrical and not in the gas and plumbing is because we have a solar panel on the old Chadwick's building. And once a year, I don't understand why, excuse me, but once a year, they have to actually shut that down. National Grid comes out and does an inspection. They turn it back on, and for whatever reason, it is done at midnight. It's a scheduled night. It's done at midnight. And our electrical inspector must be there. So to the company who runs the solar company, they felt bad. And they said to ask this person to come out, we're willing to pay $200 for them to be there at midnight. But we had no ability to pay them the $200. The $200 would come in, but we couldn't pay. Because again, this is municipal finance.
Right.
So what we said is, if you're willing to pay, because this doesn't affect the taxpayer, if you're willing to pay the $200, let's set up the $200. We'll receipt the money in. We'll pay the $200. So that's why it shows up in that one and not in the gas one.
So the gas, there's no requirement to be there at midnight at whatever night.
Well, that's the Chadwicks, that was the pilot, the payment of lieu
Exactly.
taxes.
Yeah, they're a pretty good operator.
Special town meeting.
I mean, I think we did pretty well with that. So in any event, so they were looking to increase the stipend for travel. That was denied. They were looking to increase for intermittent calls. That was denied. However, they did bring it up to $16,800 for the stipend.
16,000?
Yeah, 16,800, I believe. And so therefore, the net difference in the budget is 6166.
Now, what made you meet in the middle? Was there data that supported?
Yeah, he had provided about 8 or 9 different communities. And
Yeah, actually have it.
and so, a lot of towns were spending around $16,000, $17,000, $18,000. Granted, for the most part, all the other towns are a little bit larger because there's not a lot of other towns our size. But one person still has to do the entire job, and so I think the Board of Selectmen, because again, when I make my recommendations, it's not done in a bubble. I'm obviously talking to the selectmen on the side. In our conversations, we thought we had really good people, and we thought that they were doing a really good job. And not to say that you always have to be fearful of this, but if they were not going to be there, how likely is it that we could replace somebody at 12,000 when
Right.
nobody else is paying that?
Right.
At least it's 16,000, 17,000, maybe somebody from, I'm just making up a town, maybe Raynham, they say, hey, I'll apply for it. But at 12,000, you probably wouldn't get anyone, or almost next to no one. So
No, it should be market rate.
that was part of the methodology.
So would you consider that market rate, 16,800?
I would consider a market rate based on the analysis, yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there are some people that always want to compare us to one smaller town, and I do not know what that rate is in that town, but I always think that it is, we have to be careful that we always just want to compare ourselves to one town.
Right.
But in comparison to Raynham and some other towns, this would be a market rate.
Okay. All right, does anyone have would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of line item 2410,
2420.
2420 for 19050.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're moving on to sealer of weights and, sealer of weights and measures, 2440.
All right.
And the department request is in line with prior years. There were no recommended cuts. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for sealer of weights and measures, line 2440, for $5,840.
Great, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We're moving on to the electrical inspector, budget 2450.
This one's a reduction here of 59.66.
And it was equivalent to the electrical minus that $200, because remember, the $200 didn't already exist in the gas and plumbing one.
So we take the 1,800 out.
You would take $1,600 off of that one, so that way we're gonna fund that line for $200 at intermittent calls.
And then what's the rest of it?
16.8.
And then
Oh, the
this,
16.
that's right, 16.8. And then the other one was 25.62. That would remain at 1,500 for the travel stipend.
Okay, so it's at 19,250.
Well, the travel and phone stipends the same, they must be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would anyone like to make a motion on this budget?
Make a motion that we approve it for 19,250.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're moving on to canine control. $8,250, budget 2920. And their budget is flat year over year, the same request. There were no recommended cuts. Does anyone have any discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion that we approve that budget for 8250.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're moving on to the school, budget 3,000. And as we saw during the selectmen's meeting, their budget was cut by 75,000. 25,000 of that was for the school resource officer. So it's really only going down by 50,000. And if you remember,
Oh, yeah, that's right. They had
the school
25,000.
resource officer is going to be a separate warrant article.
No, they were gonna pull that, they were pulling that 25,000 request out for the school resource officer, and they're gonna, so it really is a reduction of 75,000, not a reduction of 50.
But on their budget, if you look at the front
Oh,
page
okay,
of
they
the
were-
green
It
sheet,
included
That's
it.
right.
they did, so that's why I did 75,000.
So I don't know what the answer is, but I still do feel that the school budget in the long run is hard on the taxpayers and may not be sustainable. We don't have the answer, but I know that it's asking a lot of the taxpayers, $500,000 to $600,000 a year.
I agree with that, but also if you look back at the year over year on the Chapter 70 funds, it's increased year over year for some of these special mandates that have come down. So though these mandates have come down and their budgets have increased, they've also received some of the increased money. Not dollar for dollar, but there has been an increase in Chapter 70. So these
That just means as a town, we may be at some point forced to make very difficult decisions because, again, it's just not a sustainable increase to the taxpayers. And I don't know what the answer is, but at some point, we're gonna have to make some, as taxpayers, we're gonna have to make some hard decisions.
Next year, we should see some relief where, you know, they said the 9 retirees this year, they shouldn't really have that next year, so we would hope to see a little bit of relief there, I would hope.
You know, I have
right?
every school budget going back to 2013,
Never renewed.
sitting in my office at home, and, yeah, there's always retirees, there's always sped, there's always transportation, there's always something.
It's a constant issue, but it's outside, it's outside of our control, it seems like a lot of
That's part of their
it.
reality and
Yeah.
what they
Right.
have to budget for.
I
Right.
agree. So did you have a specific place where that 50 was coming from, or you just said find 50 somewhere?
That's exactly the conversation I had with the superintendent. I did not identify where it would come from. Once you make your final recommendations, I will go back to her and say, where would you like me to modify your line? But as I said at the selectmen's meeting, it's impossible for me to fully pierce a $12.5 million budget. It was just a matter of saying, hey, I'm sorry, everybody had to make some cuts, and I had to find some money, and that it just came to that dollar amount.
You know, it'd be interesting to see where it comes from.
Which line?
Yeah,
It will be hard to follow unless it's in the same format.
yeah.
Well, we'll
Well,
never know unless
it-
they tell us, because there's so many lines that they request
be a
one
little
amount
here, a
and
little
use a
there.
different amount, and use
Yeah.
more, use less, it
Hey,
would
it's a bottom line budget.
literally impossible.
It will be the same format, because it has to go to town meeting. So it will
Oh,
be in the
that's
same
right, that
format.
spreadsheet.
So
will be,
I'll
yeah.
make sure that we use that. And again, I don't know, I've not had the conversation with the superintendent, but to Jerry's point, she'll tell me a line, but at the end of the day, being a bottom line budget, it's not that critical to know.
Yeah.
It's just critical for me to make sure, because I have to put a book together.
Right. And I gotta be honest, I feel more on the, more protective of their budget, because I don't know if you guys know, I'm the president of the PTO, and there was a request that came to us for $101 to get water in one of the school classrooms, and the school budget wouldn't cover it. They did not have money in the budget, so they had to come to the PTO to get water for this classroom. So when they say their budget's tight, I believe them because I see it on the other side. So I'm just throwing it out there as information, I guess, or where I come from when looking at their budget.
Well, I
It is disturbing. It's
Yeah.
extremely disturbing.
I understand where Jerry's coming from because I've lived in the town for 38 years and
Hey, me too.
I've never had kids in the school.
Right.
But I firmly believe that the quality of our town is dependent upon how we take care of our kids. People will move here.
They are
They will
moving
move
here.
here
They-
because they want to be part of this education system.
I know
That's
multiple
true.
people,
More for
they can't.
houses.
They will pay more for houses,
right.
they will pay more in taxes. I'm not sure that
And
it's
they're
gonna be
willing to.
even, but I really do believe the quality of our town is dependent upon how we treat our children and also our disabled and our elderly people.
Right.
That's
Do
the
we-
measure of
do
who
we
we
have
are.
data to
Sure, yeah.
support that it's better here than other towns?
We have the graduation rates and
Just
the,
listen to me. It's better.
Right. On Realtor.com, there's like
It talks
ratings
about-
about the
yeah.
schools. You can find it
But
easily
how are they
there
rated
by
though?
town.
On who goes to Harvard or MIT
Elementary.
or?
It is
There's a
based
lot
on
of-
how many go to
yeah.
college and things like that, and the
And the
MCAS
graduation
scores and the
rate.
graduation rates and all dropout rates,
Visiting
all that
scores.
stuff is taken into consideration, I think, when they do the ratings.
I've talked to a lot of people who have moved into this town. I know a lot of people looking to move into town that currently work in town, but they can't afford to live in town. And they want, their kids are here as part of school
That
choice.
sort of tells the story right there.
Right. I mean,
So that means this summer, no one's gonna complain on Facebook that the taxes are too high.
you cannot ever guarantee that.
right.
That's not.
There's, you're, who's not gonna,
Complaining
it's just
for sure.
innate. It's just built into us to complain about taxes. Even if we don't raise it,
He
we're
likes
gonna
getting
complain.
I
Right.
think, I think, Denise raised about bringing in more school choice, but I think, Dr. Oakley said they're full of capacity, right?
Yeah.
I know when I met with her a few years ago, the limitation is the Howard School and how
Yeah.
many students they can fit there. So
Right.
they can only let in so many school choice students for those grades, depending on how much room they actually have. Because
Yeah.
they're within a couple of students in each grade to capacity.
Right.
So I know that's where the
Does
bottleneck
does
is.
that limit fire laws or just what we say it is?
I have no idea.
Why couldn't you have 40 kids in a class?
I'm sure there's rules of some sort.
I don't think so, but I don't think there's any rules about how many children you can have in a class. But
Might have to
That's
do with
hard.
the IEP, how many children have IEPs and having the additional assistance.
I don't know.
But I don't know for sure, so I can't say.
Yeah,
Tough
I
one.
do remember.
It is a
them
tough
saying
one.
they were
It's a very
trying to
tough one.
capacity.
Anyway, I'll
Well,
make
Anyway,
a
that being
motion.
said,
$12,573,064 is the proposed budget.
That's your motion.
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Lovely.
Aye. Any opposed? You made the motion, and you oppose?
I did not oppose it. 'cause
Oh,
I
I
made the
just wanted to
motion.
make sure that was clear.
I did not oppose it. I said that it's not sustainable.
Who's gonna get the black eye first, you or me?
Well, I think we challenged them, and I think they explained a lot, so.
Yeah, well, you guys know how I feel. All right, we're moving on to Southeastern Regional, budget 3,200. I don't think there's much we can say or do.
about this.
Right,
Pretty fixed.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the Southeast Regional VOTEC budget line number 3,200 for $555,428.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I don't know if you guys noticed, it's actually $22,744 less than last year.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Right.
I think we had less students.
DPW,
soon.
you have to do I can't, yeah,
Public Works. Okay.
that's all Jerry.
All right.
Oh, do I have to
Just-
say it?
Yes, for the record, please.
For the record, please, I'm abstaining from this vote because my husband's on that department.
Okay, so we got DPW, next couple of budgets. The DPW, the selectmen's recommendation was to reduce it by 2,000.
Yeah, I don't have that sheet in front of me. There was a line,
Probably dues and meetings, that was the only thing that really was up.
no, there was
2,000.
one budget that was up.
I don't have any notes, it just says down by
42.
Oh, wait a minute, am I in the Public Works,
Jan,
4215?
what, is that 4215?
Oh, you're on page 2.
Yeah,
There's a page 1.
42.15.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I just wrote
Like, why is it so
decreased
short?
by two.
Okay.
Okay, but I didn't get a reason. They started to go fast at the end there.
I know, but we're almost done.
So it was in 5130 overtime. You'll-
5130.
You'll see that they've traditionally spent about $8,000.
Okay.
We know that they're probably gonna spend a little bit more because obviously salaries have increased. But it was a $5,000 increase. So in talking to the board, we thought by providing them a $3,000 increase, that it would probably be okay,
So
so,
you're doing it at 10,000?
yes, 10,538.
All right, so that's where the reduction is.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve 4215 for $1,071,966.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
And I abstain.
Okay, it's
One abstention.
right, 5 and 1.
Wow, $1,000,000.
Snow removal. And that, of course, would not be changed.
Nope.
The requested amount is 91,300. Is there any comments or discussion? No? Anybody want to make a motion?
Here's hoping we don't have to spend it.
There you go.
Optimist.
For many reasons.
Let's know.
I want to see.
I'll make a motion to fund it at the 91,300.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There, motion carries with one abstention.
Mm-hmm.
Street lighting, doing that one too. Lighting.
So we're increasing this based on the rates?
Rates,
More
but
lights?
both. It's,
Look at our actual last year was 77,856.
yeah, I mean, we've come back before this board a couple of years in a row,
Looking for money.
looking for money. And, I mean, the reality is that if I,
Electricity's crazy.
yeah, if I do another year, I get it audited by the DOR, they're gonna say it's not an unforeseen expense. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't do it year after year after year and say it's unforeseen.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
So, anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion on, recommend 4240 for 77.7.
Anyone like to second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous with one abstention. Okay, and then waste, am I doing waste removal as well?
Yep, waste disposal, that's
Waste
correct.
disposal, excuse me.
So the reduction was $1,000, that was from line 5293, hazardous waste disposal. You'll see that they have historically spent somewhere in the threes. They were requesting 5,000. Again, this is a variable expense. It's unfortunate because this should be zero. This should legitimately be zero. But,
This hazardous waste thing?
yes.
Is that like when people bring their paint cans and stuff?
Or when people leave their tires on the side of the road.
Oh.
Or their couch.
Oh.
Every time you
This is all
go,
that.
when you drive by the side of the road,
Couches, hazardous waste?
Oh, they're
or
picking
whatever
up
it is,
waste on the
you're
side
saying,
of the
but
road.
tires,
Should write that down.
paint, you know, they dump trash bags on the side. We don't
Yeah.
open it up and go through it, but you have to bring it to ABC and it gets disclosed as hazardous waste at that point. You know, very rarely does somebody take a trash bag and throw it on the side and it's just filled with paper.
Yeah.
So,
So why
Right.
is there such disparity in the solid waste disposal? The actuals were 117, 114, and now they're asking for 149.
yep, so I've always historically, that's really me. I've always historically funded that a little bit higher than we need, because as you get more growth, people are going to still be using it. You get more trash. And the other thing is that I want to be safe in that line, because I do not want in May to have to close the transfer station down, for all the obvious reasons.
I think
Mhm.
Facebook would,
Oh, that would be
would
horrendous.
blow up. Can you imagine
And the
that?
same for the hauling.
Yep, because they're tied together.
I think we should close
Yeah.
it down.
But they're tied together, so I make, because obviously if they dump, we have to transport.
Yeah.
So I know I have a little extra room in there that I normally need, but it is for one reason and one reason only. I am not gonna run that risk.
Yeah.
We can relook at it if one day comes, we have recessionary times and we have more people leaving, then we can relook at it at that point, but not during growth.
So we don't find that people are migrating away from using it? I see a lot of those JP.
No.
Yeah, I've seen more trash pickup around town.
For commercial, but not for,
For residential, I
Yeah.
see a lot
We
more.
started using it because we don't pick up truck anymore.
okay.
Someone like to make a motion on this, this proposed, what is waste disposal? $299,088.
I'll make a motion that we recommend as stated.
Sure, anyone like to second it?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous with one abstention.
Yes, one abstention. I don't have to abstain from tree
No,
warden.
you're up,
Okay,
you're back in the seat.
I'm back in the seat. All right, we're on tree warden. $400, it's flat year over year. There's been no suggested or recommended changes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Can you remind me why this is not combined with the other if we combine them all?
Like forestry?
Forestry.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tried, a tree warden is required by state of Massachusetts to
Oh.
exist.
So we just have to have a
And-
separate budget for it.
Well, that's because what was it, Meredith? Was it 15 years ago or so many years ago? They went to town meeting and they
Remember
tried to get the tree warden to be the forestry and not be elected, and it lost.
Yeah.
So,
I don't remember that meeting.
Democracy at its
At its best.
so you are stuck with that's right.
All right.
All right, I'll make a motion that we fund this, or recommend this budget $49.40 for $400.
4920.
Sorry, 4920.
Second?
Why does it say 49?
No, it's 4940.
On this, it says 4920.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Is
it's
there an error?
4940.
Ooh, I got 4920.
Oh,
20 or 40?
In the book, it says
Oh.
4940.
All right, well, obviously, I'll make sure that we
Oh, yeah.
look at it.
Whichever this is for the tree warden. $400.
Give that guy $400.
All right, so we made a motion. Was there a second? Did we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We're moving on to Board of Health, 5110. This is the one that's up 14,000
Right,
over
there's
the,
an $8,000 request in nursing services.
and the Board of Selectmen did not make any recommended changes. I'm surprised.
Did we get the data?
No,
No.
Not from, no, he said he'd get it too.
Yeah, he said he would. We did hear from the people of the Council of Aging and said that the services are used, but there was no metrics.
Right.
Well, she
To
gave
which
us
she
some
was-
She
metrics.
did, she said.
But we don't know if it's the same 4 people going every week or
Well,
not.
that's the thing.
5 hours Wednesday at the senior center, double to 10 hours a week. That's what I wrote
That's,
down.
I wrote plus
Yeah.
5 hours. Increase the hours to 10
5
hours
hours
a
a
week
day.
at $30 an hour.
Now, I would rather see this be in a warrant article and have people vote on it.
The nursing services?
Yeah.
How many hours is she totally there now, do we know?
Yeah, 5 hours a week.
They were gonna
Correct.
increase it by 5 hours.
Yeah.
So they're gonna double the
it.
time. And yet he
And
can't provide
It would be
metrics.
$17,000?
Yeah, he's gonna increase it to 17.5.
Yeah.
And yet we can't, and yet we
it's a
can't
large,
what?
larger dollar amount,
Hmm?
considering.
Hmm.
That's a tough one. I don't
It
think.
is a tough one, cause it's hard to know, like,
Why can't we just increase it by, they're going to go from 5 to 10, why can't we just increase it from 5 to 7.5 hours a week and see what happens? Fund enough to increase it that much, because we're not micromanaging it, and see what happens next year.
we could.
Hopefully the data's there to support it.
I mean, it's just, you know, we've been meeting at David, a lot of the wiring and the gas inspector, you kind of met in the middle. I'm not sure why we didn't meet in the middle
Go along with that.
on this budget here.
See, I'm frustrated with it because we've been asking for metrics and we clearly didn't get them
Yes,
from where we should have gotten them. So I have a hard time rewarding that behavior with increasing the budget.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's not actually what's happening and it's not one person, but
Well, it is difficult though, because, you know, there's a lot of elderly folks in town, and if they're really using the service and it's
Right.
really needed, you wanna fund it, but if you don't know, which is where we are,
Yeah.
cause we can't get metrics, it makes it difficult.
and the town is relying on our recommendation.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time recommending that because I don't have the data.
Right,
Because you're making a decision in a vacuum,
right.
Right.
Well, 2 years ago, we were against funding it, and
and we got shouted out.
Yeah. Well, it's okay.
Well, then maybe it should be a fight for town meeting. I would rather see town meeting discuss it.
Can we refer it to voters?
no.
We can't refer
Not
that
on
to
the
voters.
budget.
I suppose during that discussion, any one of us could say we don't have the data to
Yeah.
support it.
Right,
I mean, we can say that, right?
Absolutely. And they may bring it to the floor and it get passed, but I think
Yeah.
we have to recommend and give the best recommendation we can to the town.
Mm-hmm.
and actually at least they'd have some discussion and it would be.
I would like to see the discussion happen to see how people feel about it.
So what if we left it at the 5 and left it up to the townspeople to discuss
Yeah,
whether they wanted to?
that's how you do it.
That's how we would do it.
I'd do that.
So how much are we gonna reduce that, they're requesting 17.5, are we gonna reduce, we're gonna approve $10,000? Because at last year's town meeting, we approved 94.95, okay, so that's like $9,500
I mean,
roughly,
why
I
don't
mean,
we
is that
say
what we're gonna,
10,000 for round numbers?
say 10,000 for a round number and
Mhm.
reduce it by
7,500?
7,500?
And that'll prompt
And hopefully
discussion.
that will
Yeah.
prompt discussion at town meeting.
Okay, I'll make a motion then. That
So that's a reduced.
we recommend on, let's see, where are we?
50
4, right?
157, no, it's
It's one-
157,
51.10, right?
927.
Right, 157,
Oh,
927.
okay.
Minus 7,500, right?
So it's 150. 4.
So I have 150, 457.
So do I.
54,
457?
150,
427.
427.
427.
Okay.
150,000
No, you're right.
157,
150
927
Yep.
minus
154,
7,500.
Yep.
Yep, that's what I got.
is 150,427.
Right,
Yep.
Yep.
okay.
I have.
Okay, so my recommendation is.
Making a motion?
Yeah, I'm making a motion for 5110 for 150,427.
I'll second it.
And just for clarification, so on line 5312, we are going to fund that at $10,000.
That's correct.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you.
So there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, now we're moving on to Woman's Place Crisis Center. They're looking,
Even funding,
they are,
Yeah, so
no
they,
reduction of 250.
yeah, well, so
because they
basically,
looked for 250 more, so this is a
Yeah.
reduction back to the
back
original.
to the, what
back
we
to last
funded
year's
last
amount.
year.
Right, because they've never actually used anything. Well, we were supposed to give it, and we never gave it, right?
Well, they never asked for it.
Yeah, I budget for it. If they don't send in the request, I don't ship it. I mean,
Right. So would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve it for the 2750.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we're moving on to Brockton Area Art. They're looking for $250, same as last year.
Okay.
And also, they haven't requested it, so it has not been paid. That's true, so it really hasn't been paid?
if it's not there, it hasn't been paid.
So they don't bill you?
Is it unethical for me to make a phone call and say request it?
No,
Okay.
Drop a dime.
I just,
Drop a dime. I'm dropping a dime on us. Sure, I'll do it. But yeah, we budget for it. We should be giving it to them. All right, so is there a motion for the $250?
Okay, motion to approve that budget arc at $250.
Is there a second?
second,
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Now, the next one is Old Colony Hospice, and for everyone that was at the selectmen's meeting, you heard that one of the selectmen voted to increase this budget to more than what they requested. So the Board of Selectmen's request is $2,500, when the original request was only $2,000.
Actually, they asked for 2,500.
That's not what this says.
That's what the letter says. Your letter says 2,500.
Oh, yeah, it does.
I think it was a mistake that it got drafted forward at 2,000.
it might have been. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't punch in the original numbers, so if that's the case, then I apologize.
We paid $2,000 the last 2 years. $2,000 was approved last year.
Right.
So then they're looking for $500
Right, they
more.
already asked for 2,500, so.
they're looking for 500.
Yeah, they asked for
The
2,500.
letter behind says
But we're,
2,500.
are we pretty much even funding everyone else?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, because there was another one that asked for an increase and we didn't give it to them. Right, the Woman's Place
That's
asked for
right, they did.
$250 more and we didn't give it to them.
Right.
So it wouldn't be fair to
No.
give them $500 here.
No.
And it kind of felt like a special interest
Yeah,
increase, in my opinion. So I would like to see it back down to $2,000,
me too.
but would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve the 2,500 they requested. At the very least.
Is there a second?
Oh, wait a minute. So who asked for more and we said no, Women's Place?
Yes.
Okay,
Bless you.
never mind, I take the motion back.
Take it
I
back.
kind of,
You know, my mother, when my mother passed away, Old Colony Hospice really provided hospice care, so I, and
My
you know what?
mother
I
as
made it up in a private donation.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
all right, so that motion died.
Motion, that
Is
we
there a new
approve.
motion on the floor?
Mo's in the
There is?
middle of
No,
this
is
motion.
there a new
Yeah,
motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve 5280 for $2,000.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for $2,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries at $2,000. All right, now we're moving on to Council on Aging, 5410. It doesn't look like there's been any reductions or increases by the Board of Selectmen or Town Administrator. They were looking for $288,121, and that has been what was recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Is there a motion?
They didn't take any kind of a,
You know,
No
when they come in
haircut
next
there.
year, they really have to do some advertising on their thing. I mean, they could raise some money, and instead of having to come in here and beg, they would have create a revolving fund.
I
that would-
believe they have a few revolving funds.
Well, they don't have any advertising on their brochure, and yet they,
Oh, their newsletter thing?
yeah, and they could raise some money, and then they wouldn't be begging us for all these increases.
I don't know if they have the staff for that. Do they have
You
the
have to
staff?
go out and beat the bushes to get the ads.
Yeah, they get people would come to them. They wouldn't even have to go out and beat the bushes.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has, though. Not that any of this matters. Does
Anyway,
Yeah.
back to the task at hand.
Council on Aging at $288,121. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the voters the 288,121.
All right, is there a second?
second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, now moving on to veterans, it looks like there's been a cut of $15,000 by the Board of Selectmen or and
So
town
why
admin.
are we cutting that?
Yeah,
Because,
Cash.
yeah, if you look at
Oh,
the
yeah.
payout line,
Yeah.
they historically paid about $18,000. And about 3 years ago, they said that there was a couple of people moving into town and they were gonna have to increase it to 45,000, which we did.
Okay.
But either those people did not move in, or they moved in and didn't need the benefits, or something worse happened. All I know is that we've never actually funded anywhere near the 45,000.
oh, okay.
And so, I had a conversation with the office, and I just said, it looks like to me $30,000 would still be okay, based on the historical trend. I've asked them this year if they've had anybody new, the answer was no. So I felt comfortable that 30,000 would still be able to provide the services that we need to.
Okay, fair enough.
And if
And it
anyone,
said we got 75% reimbursement from the state, too.
We do. Unfortunately, it doesn't replenish the budget. It goes into the general fund, so you have to budget for it up front, and then the following year you get it back.
But you
And
only
it's-
get back what you spent, and we haven't spent it, so.
No, correct. You get
Yeah,
back
right.
75% of it.
Right.
No.
Okay. So I'll recommend that we recommend to the voters a budget of 68,832.
is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to the library, it looks like there's a $1,000 cut here. And I wasn't sure where that 1,000, did that
Yep.
come from anywhere in particular?
Yep, so if you go to
Five.
5210, they requested a $500 increase in that line.
It doesn't have
No, I
the,
don't have numbers.
Oh, and the
Oh,
next page,
that's
next
right.
page.
Eating.
That's right.
Next page.
Thank you, thank you,
Eating.
thank you.
Yeah,
So we're gonna turn the
we
thermostat
got it
down.
right
Oh.
here, Dave.
And then,
5210.
yeah, and then 5211 electricity.
Yeah.
Again, off the top of my head, I want to say that's usually funded at 16.5.
Yeah.
Although the electricity rates will go up, she's not been anywhere near the 16.5.
Okay.
And it's just one of those things that I was looking for, I need to get a couple of $1,000s more, just to get to under that 2%. And it was a line that we could afford to do it. It's been communicated to her, and, I think she understands, so. And again, nobody's ever excited,
Yeah.
yeah, nobody's ever happy about
but,
it, but.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that kind of went up, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah, there was a
patron
lot of-
materials went up quite a bit.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean,
Their
$1,000
use
is
went way
not a
up.
lot on that.
No,
No,
they
and-
agree with me.
$450,000 budget.
And I'm not a big believer in nickel and diming. I just, if you really want to control your tax dollars, you have to look for big numbers, not little numbers.
Yeah.
But in this case here, I needed to find a little bit more money, and it was identified, and
Yeah,
I think again, because there are some increases on the other lines.
yeah,
And the electricity line is not over by $2,000, it's over by $4,000. I felt that it would be a reasonable $500 reduction line.
yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good-sized budget, so to ask for $1,000 just doesn't seem unreasonable.
All right, would
I'll
anyone,
make a motion that we approve 6,100 for 452, 396.
all right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we're moving on to the Plymouth County Extension Services, $200.
And they come and get this every year, or?
Yep.
I think they actually do. I'm not looking at it, but
It says actuals, so
Yeah.
it looks like they do.
$200.
They might have been notified last
And,
year.
and I've said this based on the information, it's like the biggest bang for your buck. I mean, literally, we have a couple of dozen kids who go and use them for $200.
Yeah,
pretty good.
That's a great deal.
yeah. So I'll make a motion, we recommend to the voters the $200 for the.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, now we're moving on to Historic Commission. Budget 6910. They are looking for $1,750, which looks consistent year over year. No increases, no recommended cuts. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve 6910 for 1750.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We move on to the Veteran and Memorial Day Parade, budget 6920.
Is it our year, is that what it's?
It is not.
It's not
The increase was because they priced out flags and they went up a few dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
Stars and stripes cost more.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't make them like they used to either. Put them at my father's grave and they just fall apart.
Disintegrate.
You do know they said that 50 years ago.
What? They don't make them like they used to.
And they will say that 50
I
years
know,
from now.
Right.
They'll be biodegradable.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion for the 1700?
Make a motion to approve Veterans and Memorial Day in the amount of $1,700.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we're on to the principal debt, budget 7100. I'd like to cut this, but apparently I can't.
$3 million.
Well, they just write it off.
Yeah, right.
I don't think so. I don't think the bondholders will do that. So there's an increase of 335,000 over the prior year,
Right, and that's from the school.
right? Because they had to do the last part of the bonding.
That was the end of it?
Yep.
That's the end of it. It was a $5 million payment that we hadn't made. And so that $5 million is represented by the interest.
What was it, a list of things they had to complete?
They had to complete it, and then we were in settlement talks with them for over a year.
Other
And
things.
we obviously weren't going to pay them until we were finally done, so,
Yeah.
Has that happened?
yes.
Thank goodness.
Okay,
There's a
Punch
beautiful
list.
plaque over there on the, in the school that shows all the names of the people on the school building committee. You should go look at it. Especially since the last name starts with A.
All right, so who wants to make a motion on this budget?
I point it out to my kids every time we're in there. Like, look what mommy did.
Look what you did.
Sorry. I came in at the end.
I'd like to make a motion on the debt principal, item 7100, for $2,015,436.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, the interest portion of the debt.
That's directly reflecting from the principal, is that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all tied together.
Yeah, okay. So how about a motion to approve 7510, or recommend for approval for 1,194,913?
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Now, the next one is short-term interest, $50,000. Is this those bands? Yeah,
Yes.
the short-term bands.
What was it?
It's 50,000 they're looking for?
Odds and ends, or
Bands were short-term debt,
under a year?
under a year.
Just different things, and,
Yeah, they would play around depending on the rate, so it wouldn't have to go out to the bond market.
okay. All right, so I recommend for approval 7520 for 6,033,204. I'm sorry, 50,000.
I'm sure they would love 6 million, but no.
7510.
We wouldn't love 6 million.
Yeah, Scott would be so excited. Is there a second?
It's actually, is it 7510 or 7520?
7520.
20.
Short-term interest,
20,
50,000.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Oh, second. I thought we.
Sorry, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries at 50,000.
I know.
All right, now the next one's a $6 million line item for benefits.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Employees are always the most expensive.
Health, the biggest chunk of that?
The two drivers is health insurance and retirement. And the retirement is going to go up on average 8% every year until 2033.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at $2 million, 8% is 160 grand.
Underfunded.
Correct. But to Massachusetts' credit is the fact that at that time, at least in theory, will be fully funded. And in theory, that $2 million then disappears and all you will have is administrative costs, which at this point would be a couple $100,000. So that'll be a huge savings, assuming that they're accurate.
So this is the town's portion of the, trying to get that funded?
Yeah, so all employees like myself, we don't pay Social Security.
Yeah. no,
We
I know.
pay almost the equivalent of 11%. It's 9 plus 2. And so we pay that because in theory, we're supposed to be self-funding. Majority of that you're seeing is because of previous employees that were underfunded. And people living longer.
Yeah.
You know, and then the other driver is obviously health insurance. Again, you know, it's, and again, you know, 7.5% is not a great number, but in reference to health insurance, the recent trend, if you're below double digits, and it's all claims related. A couple of years ago, we actually had a 0% increase. Then 2 years in a row, we had a 15 and 16% increase. And this year it's at 7.5%. And I get to see the claims. I don't get to see the names. But, you know, all it took was this past year, we actually did pretty well, but we had two people that both had over $1 million claim. You know, and what are you gonna do? Tell them they can't do it? You know, so it's,
Do they have reinsurance?
I'm sorry?
Do they have reinsurance or is it fully self-insured?
As a group, it's fully self-insured. So, you know, but again, I mean, I hate to say it, but a 7.5% increase in that health line is actually
Pretty good.
Not bad.
in
Right.
comparison to the world.
Yep.
Add that to the pile
What do you mean?
of sustainability.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we know, look at this. The country is a healthcare issue.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Sure
and
does.
unfortunately,
Is our resident expert.
Right.
I just had to go out and buy health insurance on my own. What an experience.
You're not old enough.
I've heard.
I know.
so, you know, the town of West Bridgewater is not going to fix that. So we're just, you know,
No.
we're the
no.
proverbial tail on the dog. So
No, yeah.
Okay. So
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend line item 9100 benefits for $6,033,204.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we're moving on to the Water Department.
And so I am hopeful that you will have an updated water department budget where they're highlighted in yellow with numbers, because when the water department was here, we did not have all of the benefits listed yet. So now we have backfilled it, so before you see what the total water department budget request would be.
Yeah, some of their, like, the appointed officials, why is that going up so much? From 83, 84 to
It says they're
98.
fully
Is that-
staffed now. I made a note they're fully staffed. Maybe they were short-staffed before.
And the labor line has gone up considerably. They hired new people.
Yeah, so, so they readjusted Wayne's salary, so that's, that's contractual, but that's why you see line 1 go to where it did. And on line 2, which is the permanent salaries, Jan is correct, they historically had 4 people. When Wayne went from laborer to superintendent, they never backfilled the position. I think at the time, they were kind of hoping he could be a working superintendent, but, that's really not fair, and things didn't really get, it's hard, you can't do both. So they decide to backfill the position and have a staff of 4. Obviously, if you got 4 people compared to 3, that's going to have a substantial increase. But it has historically been 4 people, and it really should be at least 4 people.
And then they moved the stipend into salary
That's
Or
great. That's
Wayne
what they
made
did.
it, yeah.
down. This allowances and stipends, see how it's a $10,000 decrease? They moved it up to
In their
salaries.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The heating cost, the actuals went from 12,714 to 20,000, and as of December, they had spent 3,600.
Where
Yeah,
are-
that's a
where are
line
you?
that-
Did you say?
5210, heating fuel,
5210.
that's a line that might be overfunded.
Yeah.
Equipment repairs, maintenance, they've spent 5,000, 31,000. They've spent 10,000, they're requesting 24. There's a couple of lines that could be a little overfunded. The GIS line, I still don't understand why they're asking for 10,000 when the past couple of years they've only spent 3,800.
There's a blip in the legal too.
Yeah, well, hopefully the legal won't be an issue going forward.
The equipment
So
repairs
this-
and maintenance, it's just there's items that just don't,
I know, some of it seems inflated.
some of them seem like they're just
Yeah.
over, and this is comes down to the ratepayer, so, and I know that it was a big to-do about the water department in the past, so.
Yeah. This remind me though, we still do the same thing as all the other budgets, even though this is the water department and they're their own thing. So do we have this updated with these or?
They should be.
Is that the updated?
Let me just,
It's in
It
the-
said town to provide, so we filled that in.
Office supplies went up
You don't have,
1,500.
there's no new budget.
So some of these lines, I feel like they're just a little overfunded.
Well, is there a separate thing for postage? They have to send the bills quarterly now.
Did they
Yeah, but they
have
have-
to, or they made a decision?
They made a decision, and
Yeah,
I,
so people wouldn't take such a big hit semi-annually.
I can add, and I don't.
I know. Some people can't plan is the problem.
Oh, I see.
Well, you
I-
know, you
I
have
remember
it
it
and
was
then
a-
you end up spending it on something else, not necessarily,
unnecessary items.
right, not necessarily on going out to dinner and playing, just on surviving and, gee, Mom, I need a new pair of shoes. But I tell you, I have a project due next week, so.
I thought they were trying to make it look like the rates went down.
I think they thought that was gonna work.
So how do you guys feel about this budget?
Oh, boy.
I feel it's a little overfunded,
I do too, but I don't
but I don't know how much, we don't have much leeway on it. I mean, we can make a recommendation, but we don't,
It'll get plenty of attention, I'm
Right.
sure.
right.
I had made a note here that said currently they have approximately 487,000 in surplus.
There's a lot, but they also
They were
said
gonna
they had
talk
some
about
big things to fund,
expansion,
right?
right, well,
But
expansion.
for the size of their budget, that's a huge surplus.
How much was their surplus? 187,000?
400.
487.
No, they don't have that much in
Well,
surplus.
that's what I
do
I
they?
didn't know.
That's what I wrote down.
They have
$487,000.
$487,000 in surplus?
That's 25% of their current
Do they
requested
still
budget.
have that, or they had that at one point?
Their surplus for this year was 787,000.
Oh, because we just moved a
And then,
bunch of town
and then
meetings.
you just moved about 300,000, so that's what's left over.
So they had 787,000 in surplus.
Yes.
Well,
If you talk
that
to
kind of
Rick-
warrants a big cut
Well,
in
aren't
their
they, don't they
budget.
use that
Well, there's-
surplus money to go out and, like, for new wells?
Well, that's what I have
That's
a note.
all
It says
year
the
ago, isn't
surplus
it?
is earmarked for well expansion.
Yeah. Well, they
I
had,
don't know.
they had to replace some pumps, and then he went on quite extensively about some of the age of some of the equipment
We
and
paid
having
for
to
that,
find
though.
another well and all that kind of stuff.
Right?
David?
What is the question?
The warrants for the last
Four
town
hundred
meeting,
and
we paid for
87,000,
all
do they
that
use
stuff.
that to fund, new wells?
I believe that they want to use that money for new wells. I have not received any warrant articles, so
Yeah.
at this point, my guess is the money is just sitting there. And that might be because the engineering hasn't come back yet to tell them what to do, and, because that could take some,
They
that
could
could take
provide the
some time.
taxpayers with a written plan of how they plan to use, the surplus. I mean, if they're, I think one of the big things about the golf course was the fact that if that had become a development, we most certainly would have needed a new well. So we do understand that they may need one, but, they owe it to the taxpayers perhaps to give an accounting of how they plan and when they plan to use their surplus, so that we can assess it fairly. And I think without that, it just looks like a whole big pile of money
Right.
that they're sitting on.
I'm looking at the bottom line year over year. So FY16 was 1.37 million.
Yeah.
FY17 is 1.75 million, and now we're up to 1.98. So we're almost at $2 million.
And what's happened for
huge.
$2 million?
Where's
Yeah.
the $30,000
increases.
come from between this 1.955 and this 1.98?
Let me ask you, because Jan doesn't have the updated budget. Does everybody have a budget that you're
Yeah.
looking at that totals 1985032?
No,
No, mine
No.
has
I
do.
1955785.
mine has 1955.
Oh, I have it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it on a different page?
Lucky you, you're the only one.
I have 1955.
1955.
I'm just gonna make some copies then.
You know what? You know what? I have so many budgets here. It's not even the first copy of the water department budget.
Correct.
It's the second copy.
That's a second, there's a third copy.
Yeah, there's 3 copies. So go to your
So
second copy.
let me make
Look at
copies,
that.
because apparently this didn't get in there.
I think I only have one copy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've got one.
Not
You
feeling
are
the
the
love.
privileged person.
I think I got everybody's
Not
copies.
feeling the love.
So
I
when
think you might
David goes over these budgets to recommend to the selectmen, right? He didn't recommend any cuts here, right?
I know, they
Is there a
didn't even
reason
talk
why?
about this at
Because it
all.
doesn't affect the tax rate, and the selectmen probably
Oh.
wouldn't, because it doesn't affect the tax rate. It's not under the Board of Selectmen's
Right.
authority.
Yeah.
Right.
So they wouldn't make cuts. It would be, people would look to us for our recommendation.
Yeah, that is a big jump though,
They weren't listed
1.3 to,
To 2
2
million, and then to have 787,000 in surplus?
yeah.
So
That
what do
doesn't
you
even
do?
make sense.
Just pick a number and,
Well,
So
I mean,
state
they
Those are
could,
the other things
provide-
that
Cut
we
it by
missed.
could say cut it by,
250.
2% or 5% or whatever, I don't know.
That is
'cause who
just
knows what the next
huge.
surplus they pick up, because they haven't started and it takes 5 years to do a well.
Do they invest that surplus to make some money on it while
You
it's sitting
can't.
there?
And they do, I hope they do. No,
Nope, you can't.
can't.
Taxpayer funds. Has to
Even
be,
though there's taxes?
right. It's still part of the enterprise fund. They can't.
You can see this, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So it's the first two.
So what's the other 30 grand from where we were? Is that these yellow buckets? that
That's
got
correct, so
filled
it's
in?
basically insurance, retirement,
First two.
healthcare insurance.
Yikes.
first
their
two,
health
pass
care's
it on.
not
Oh, I
great
have.
the last time I just looked.
Because they, as an
Like,
enterprise
thank you.
fund, they're fully responsible for all of their fees, so they pay for it separately.
Do they have the same plan?
Yes. Yeah, so this is an 8% increase, the same way the towns is. Their only difference, like a couple of years ago, both their superintendent and their assistant superintendent retired within 1 year of each other, and so therefore went really up.
That's true.
But as long as they don't have any more retirees, they'll be at 8%.
So,
Then,
but I still don't have 1 point.
It's in a different place.
Oh, got it.
I had trouble too.
What is it?
I was looking to the right and it's kind of in the middle
In the
box.
middle,
Oh,
gotcha. So,
Appointed officials of the board?
The commissioners?
Yeah.
the elected officials
Elected
is the board.
officials? Yeah.
No, it is, okay, who are appointed?
The appointed is the superintendent.
Well, that is quite a jump in his salary. And is it as much of a jump when you add in all his stipends?
Who is the superintendent?
Wayne Parks.
Wayne.
So,
Who's working as on the
Yeah.
labor?
Things changed when Rick became water commissioner.
from what I saw, I'm going by memory, Wayne received a 2.5% increase, or close to that. And then what they did was they took the stipends that he was being paid before, they put it into his salary, and then as Jan said earlier, that's why line 5190, the stipend went down.
Went away.
All right.
yeah, the thing that troubled me about that though is that now that's part of his salary, so every year when he gets his 2 to 3%,
Right.
that's gonna
Yeah.
go.
It's
Yeah.
gonna
Okay,
include
because
that.
the
An
city
exponential
buyback,
thing,
that's
yeah.
part of that too.
Right?
And I think that
And
was
his
probably
pension
the intent.
calculation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There was intent there.
they certainly know how to take care of each other, don't they? To the detriment of the taxpayer. It's just not fair.
Well, ratepayer in this case.
So how do you guys feel about this budget? Do we cut it? Do we leave it alone?
Well, we can't cut it, we can make a recommendation, correct?
What are the
Yeah, no,
temporary
you would make-
salaries?
You would make a recommendation on this like you would any other budget.
I didn't make any notes around the temporary salary, $6,000 that just showed up out of nowhere.
I don't know the answer.
I don't have a note on that either.
It looks like it was approved at the last town meeting but not used.
What's that? What line?
Temporary salaries, 5120.
They didn't request, oh, they did request.
I guess if they wanna meet their budget and we reduce it, they can get it from surplus.
Well,
they just
keep in
move
mind, we're only making a recommendation.
Right,
Yeah.
but let's assume it's voted. They can't take it from surplus, though, okay.
No,
What
so
is that?
money can only be transferred out of surplus at town meeting.
Okay, all right.
So
Well, we
like
can
this-
also strategize on town meeting. What are the chances that people are gonna stand up and say, give the water department more money?
I mean, a lot of these budgets, went up, like the laboratory services went up. Well, it's kind of all over the
I
place.
mean, I don't know if that surplus is extremely high or
Well,
seems high.
when their budget for the past year was 1.7 and
Yeah.
they got 0.8 in surplus.
That
We
was-
don't know what their potential capital expenses are, but.
Don't
you
their
know, for
capital items
improvement.
come
Do they
before the
come
town?
before? So
Water
if- would
department's
they
Does
say
the
they wanna
town see
create a
that?
well?
Is that,
How
I
does
mean,
that
do the
happen?
members of the
Is it a
town see
bonded
that
thing?
number somewhere? Probably not, right?
Which number?
So,
The surplus.
No.
so we have not dug for a well since I've been here, so I can't tell you exactly what the process would be. I would assume that that would be a capital budget request, but I don't know.
So it could be covering engineering and research ahead of time?
Yeah, and they're doing that now.
Yeah.
When they transferred the money last time, it was to
Right.
fund engineering for a new well.
Right.
And I think Rick, last time he was here, said from A to Z, it takes about 5 years
Right.
to go through the process to get to the point that you can dig for one.
Right.
Right. I do remember that. It was pretty complicated from the sound of it.
Hmm.
Well, if we did cuts, where would they be?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at, I mean, I think that's a discussion. I'm looking at 5210, heating and fuel, 5243, equipment repairs and maintenance. And I'm not looking at, I mean, you know, maybe, I don't know, $3,000 in heating just because they hadn't spent any money and they
Right.
budgeted 20,000.
Right.
And maybe $2,000 in equipment repairs and maintenance. And then the GIS supplies, I still don't understand 5301, why they've only used 3,800. They used 57 this year. I don't follow why they requested 10. I'm sorry, I
They
don't
weren't
know.
doing a lot with the GIS system, and now they are. But I'm not sure why such a big increase either.
The laboratory services, I agree that,
It's kind of all over the place.
looks like it would be overfunded by a few $1,000s. You know, if we want to keep going, you know, the telephone looks like it could be a little overfunded. You know, in my field, you know, when you get a budget for office supplies, and once you reach your budget, or you get close to your budget, you stop buying things.
Stop buying things, right?
Right.
In my world,
Yeah, the telephone's high.
So what they don't spend goes to surplus? Goes
Water surplus.
that is
to their
correct.
surplus, right? And that's increasing pretty dramatically. We don't know where it's coming from, though. Well, you can see here what they're spending, so that seems to be in line.
My only other note is that there was stated that there were no increase in water rates anticipated.
I should hope not.
Yeah, right.
Water purification chemicals. I mean, we don't know enough about it to really
Yeah,
make a judgment.
no,
but
you're
it
right.
just,
Two and a
it
half
just seems like it's
percent.
been overfunded.
2.5% of their last year's approved town meeting amount of 1.9 is 47.5, so say 50,000. And that would make it a 2.5% increase. So the difference between 83, so about 2.5% of the 1.9 million. The
Okay.
1.9 million is the amount that was approved at last year's town meeting.
Yeah,
So 1.9 times 2.5%.
yeah.
Is rounded up to say 50,000. Just kind of throwing it out there. So the difference between 50,000 and their request is 33,748.
Wow.
So do we reduce it by 33,000,
So try to
35,000?
hold them to a 2.5% increase.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just state it as a bottom line, you don't have to indicate where, I mean, it's a,
Right, it
Right.
would be bottom line.
Well, no, we'd have to, I mean, you'd have to let me know, because I gotta put the book in. I've got,
Oh,
Oh,
that's true,
right.
that's true.
I mean, I can tell you, I'm not, I think you're gonna be hard pressed though to find $33,000.
Well, what have I got? 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would agree with that. I've got,
I got 8,500 just in a couple of things we rattled off.
Yeah,
right, 3, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't know enough about water purification chemicals, you know, but it seems like this could be slightly overfunded for a few $1,000s on line 5537.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
A few thousand, yeah.
right.
I think you could find most of it there, looking at the prior years.
unless there's been some new requirement that we're not aware of.
Right.
Right, so.
They have the opportunity to come in if we cut their budget.
Yeah, so what we've historically done is that if you make a reduction that after the Board of Selectmen has approved the budget, is that I will contact the departments. So at this point, the departments I'm going to contact is, I'm gonna contact the Economic Development Commission, knowing that they won't answer. Bad joke. But I will let the Board of Health know, and I would let the Water Department know. You usually take 2 to 3 nights to go through your budget. You're done in one night. So that means next week, we're currently scheduled for Monday, Tuesday,
And
and
Thursday.
Thursday. my thinking is that you probably
Just jump
only
to
need
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah,
You don't
That's
need
what I'd
Monday
like
and
to do.
Tuesday.
right.
That would be
And
good.
next Thursday, you would be voting on articles.
I'll
and
have the letter for us to review.
Yep.
That goes in the book.
a picture,
A picture,
and,
Black and white.
black and white.
No kids.
and then I will request the department heads to come in, and that way they can speak to you about their respective budgets. But
If they choose.
if they choose, because sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't.
Right. So what are we recommending on the water department?
Well, I came up with 16. What do you have, Jan?
16,000?
I think you could find another 20 in that,
Yeah, I had
120.
Let me see, let me
That
just tell you what
waterproof.
I came up with. Okay, so starting on the first page, 5210, I had 3,000 there.
Yep,
5243, I had 2,000.
yep.
5301, I had 3,000.
Oh, okay.
5315 on the next page. Laboratory services, 3,000. Telephone, 5340, I put 1,000.
Yep.
Purification, I did only put 3,000 on that. We could,
I think we can,
Look
there's a
at
lot more.
tools and supplies.
yeah, I know, tools and supplies are it's another line where they might be a little bit overfunded. Do you wanna put,
I hate to pick on gasoline, but
I know, nor do I think we should, because the price of gas is going up.
yeah.
I will say though, in the tools and supplies, you do see in 16, they did spend 31,000.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that
Right.
probably if something
Something
breaks,
breaks or they need to
and it might be an
retool
expensive
something.
repair.
Hard to
Right.
predict.
you know.
I think there's more to cut in water purification.
So let's still do $2,000 for tools and supplies. That'll give us 18. Now we're at 18,000.
What'd you say for water purification?
3,000? And that was just a round number. We could make it 5,000 and then we'd be at 20 and we might,
We moved it to 10. No, 115,000. Look
Yeah.
at what they've spent in the
I know
past years.
historically, I know. They're asking 125,000 and they've
think
never
if we-
spent close to 100.
Which
Right.
one?
In water purification chemicals.
You can easily bring that down to 115.
So we'll make that 10,000.
Yeah, that's pretty low, 33.
That's
22. 3 is 25. So we're up to 25 actually.
Well,
I could live with that.
Okay.
All right, Jerry, can you do me a favor? Can you say
run
the
through those
lines
again.
again?
Sure.
so I know?
Sure, let's start from the top. Line 5210, heating fuel, reducing by 3,000. Line 5243, equipment repairs and maintenance, decreasing by 2,000. 5301, GIS, reducing by 3,000. Next page. Top laboratory services, reducing by 3,000. Telephone, reducing by 1,000. Tools and supplies, line 5533, we were reducing by 3,000.
3,000 there?
Yeah.
I had two.
I had two. too.
Okay, all right, well then we're at 24. And then line 5537, we were reducing by 10,000.
All right, then change that to a decrease of 3,000 and we'll be at 25.
Okay, so tools and supplies will make 3,000, so that'll give us 25,000. That we'll make as a recommendation. And, again, I just, they certainly take care of themselves.
I mean, given the amount of surplus they have, it seems reasonable.
And I'm all for
Come a
planning for the
little bit.
future, but we need to see the plan,
Yeah.
so that we know, what the taxpayers know, the
and how
ratepayers,
it'll
what they're
run
paying
out
for.
over
I think
5
that's
years.
fair,
Right,
a fair
I do too.
request.
Well, it's the same thing we said about the Board of Health.
Because you gotta their surplus will increase each year, even though it's spread over 5 years for the wells.
Right,
The surplus is
Right.
continuing to
Right,
increase
that's right.
too.
you're
So
right.
taking $25,000 off their budget decreased it 1.315%.
So instead of 2.87%,
1.31?
We reduced it to a 1,
.315.
that's.
No, 25, taking $25,000 out of their budget, reduce their budget 1.315%.
So instead of 4.4, they're going down to 3
Be 3.9.
I got 2.87.
So do I.
On the line with the 1955785, right next to it says 2.87%.
All right, let me make sure.
That's your old one. Look at the new one.
1955785, I thought that was the new one.
No, it's 1985.
Oh, I don't have one.
1985032.
Wait, you were
Oh,
the one
here.
saying you had it
Oh,
all.
they did. I thought he said 1955.
Oh, this is the one, sorry.
So they had,
You poor thing, you're lost in space, right?
so we had 1985032. We're gonna take 25 off of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I
And
have,
that brings us to 1960032, right?
yep, 032, that's what I have.
It's getting a little late. And what's that for a percentage increase?
The budget increased 58,748. Divide that by last year's budget amount. That's 3.01%. No, 3.1%.
Yep, that's what I got too.
Yes, we brought it down 1.3 by taking out that 25,000. That's correct.
I mean, it seems reasonable. Let them tell us why it's not, right?
It brought their overall department requests down. I can live with that. So did we take a vote on that?
No.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
To adjourn?
No.
Mo's left the room.
Retired. What are you complaining about?
I know,
Had a
right?
rough day.
So for the budget we're talking about is $1,960,032. Would
Correct.
anyone like to make a motion to approve that amount?
I'll make a motion to recommend that amount. to the board.
$1,960,032.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. So we are at 1,960.
I know, that's really good.
32.
So are we still tied into
Thursday.
Thursday after this Thursday, right?
Next Thursday we'll be
Next
here.
Thursday, yeah.
We'll be here
Let's
next
get the week it
Thursday.
is.
So next Thursday, I will let 2 department heads know if they choose to
If
come
they
in.
wish to come in.
You will also be voting on warrant articles. And you'll be, if you have your message and a picture.
Yes. I'll bring a couple of
So
options.
we're saying no meeting Monday or Tuesday next week.
How many warrant articles?
I don't know yet. There's gotta be a, there's
Thursday next
gotta
week?
be, yeah.
There is? But we just had a special town meeting. How can there be this many warrant
The
articles?
DPW is looking for more trucks.
So
No.
no.
I'm joking, I'm joking. Good thing that we're this far away, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. Or a little man at home's gonna get
Throw
strangled.
something at
Right.
us.
Well, capital budget has,
Yeah, it's
8 or
quite a
9.
few.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right,
There
so
is a
took
few.
Monday
And
and
then-
Tuesday off my calendar. We're just coming Thursday.
yes.
know,
And we're staying till we're done on
yeah.
Thursday.
Thursday's
How
the
many days do we have?
26th,
Things
is
that were
that
done
correct?
tonight, too.
Yeah, yeah. I'd
No,
rather get it all
it should
done.
be the it should be the
Thursday
3rd.
would be the third.
third.
Yes, next Thursday, the 3rd.
Third.
Oh, God, I forgot what week I'm in. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna
How
be in
many
May.
articles we have?
I don't know, I haven't
Oh,
had a
yes,
chance to
on
total them yet.
Thursday.
But, you know, you gotta have 5 or 6 or 4 or 5, say around 5 CPC.
Next week.
You'll have 8, 9, or 10 capital
I
budget.
think I've overcommitted.
There's
Yeah,
no
we gotta
bylaw
look at the
changes.
capital
Week of the
budget.
year that happens.
There will be the marijuana stuff.
We don't usually-
Yeah, they. Did you base that
was
based
Still
on
busier
the
with this conservation
vote?
committee.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
did
this
you
is a
do
late
on that?
meeting.
We haven't done anything yet with it. I had to finish this first, and I'm gonna be in a meeting on Wednesday night with the Cannabis
I have to read
Control
it.
Commission.
Is that the state one?
Yes.
We don't have a.
Would anyone,
Okay.
excuse me, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Our next meeting, next Thursday, May 3rd. See you all then. Anyone, motion?
I'll make
Motion.
a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Sorry. Aye.
Moved. Good